We should be live. Let me just verify on YouTube. And we are live. But before we start, I have something. We have a jingle. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to our second Tour de Tools. Today we are joined by the lovely Tim Leers. Tim Leers is a machine learning engineer at Dateroots, master of psychology, ex-editor of a journal that now skipped my mind. What was it, Tim?
The Journal of European Psychology Students.
Voilà. Very nice. Tim joins us to introduce guild.ai.
Yep.
We will look at two tools today. Amundsen by Lyft, which we will start with. It's a Gauthier will demo for us, and then switch to guild.ai.
Right. Should I start?
Yeah, I do hear somewhere an echo.
I think I am muted.
I hear it as well, yeah.
I am muted.
Hello? Weird. Test.
Are you muted? There's no sound coming in.
I'll mute myself, just to be sure.
How is this? This is... No, I still hear it.
We still hear it. Where's it coming from? Anyway, I'll mute myself.
I think it's gone. No, it's not.
Fun. Is this better?
I think it is.
But I hear you need to mute your laptop.
My laptop is muted.
The sound on your laptop.
How is this for a...
Test.
That's it.
And,
okay, that was it.
And we're better. We're up again.
All right, my bad. Indeed.
Okay, let's go. Okay, I'm gonna put your screen
Please do.
on the stream. Voila.
Right.
Amundsen by Lyft. Over to you, Gauthier.
I think just Pablo just told me he can't hear us so well. How's this? How's this, Pablo? Can you hear us? Right. Ping Bart. Quit Slack. Okay, so today I'll be demoing Amundsen. So I've been wanting to at least take a tour with that tool for some time. So I think it comes in handy when we do a tour of the tools. So at Amundsen, long story short, it's a metadata hub. So what it means is that you can store your metadata and then you can search for it. And you can really query your metadata. There is a lot, we'll actually go through this. There is a lot of different components that you can plug into it, and it can take data from a wide range of sources. Up to the actual architecture, because I think, as you can see already here, just if you can see, it includes 3 microservices plus some extra libraries. So there is a lot of stuff that goes with Amundsen. Just gonna take a quick look through the architecture. So this is what we look like. So there is a front-end service, just JavaScript basically. Then they have a search service, which is backed up by Elasticsearch. And they have a metadata service, which actually stores the data. And you can either have it by backed by Neo4j or by Atlas. Then, and because this is not enough, you actually want data inside your metadata hub, and they have a data builder ingestion framework, which is a custom built solution, but it is very nice because it has a lot of different plugins. So let's actually look into everything they have. So they basically define their own definition of job, which are tasks. Long story short, ETL plus you publish it inside Amundsen. And as you can see, like so they have databases, Hive, um, Postgres, MySQL, Druid. They can extract data and metadata from a like Snowflake, BigQuery, all the big, everything that is like S3, all the cloud providers, most of the databases, you can actually plug into this. And then like those, yeah, go ahead.
Could I ask a question? Like, it looks very complex. Well, what problem does it actually solve?
So what problem solves is like if you are in a company where data is scattered around, which is usually the case, even if you have a data lake, it's not enough. Like you still need to be able to discover something from your data. And like what Amundsen does is it does exactly that. So it does that by taking all the metadata so that you can search through it. You can also edit and add. I'm actually going to show it. Like you can add descriptions on things, add tags, so that you can quickly basically share data assets, I would say, inside your company.
Okay.
So on to the demo. So here I already started Amundsen. That's the main project browser. Amundsen runs on 5,000. Yeah, you do. It's set in the wait. It's set. Oh, wrong button. It's set inside the like you do need a lot of power to actually spin this up. Like I think you need a few CPUs and a few gigabytes to just be able to spin up the local instead of Amundsen. So let's see. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run on one side. I decided to just rerun their small example. So they have some example data that you can put in there. So I'm just following the tutorial. And what I wanted to do is because I wanted to see how hard it is to actually plug data into it. So what I did, if you mention on the setup, I think it's here. So what I've done is I've spinned up a small database. I actually used the same Shark data that I used for the previous tour de tools.
You seem to be a fan of shark attacks.
Exactly. And I'm just connecting this to the network that was built by the previous Docker Compose.
Yeah.
Just to add it to the network. So let's do this.
Marilo says that your text is tiny.
Hope that fixes it.
Is it big enough, Marilo? Yeah, just go ahead. The comments that we see, we're using StreamYard to stream all this, and it lags behind a few seconds behind the YouTube comments.
So, so on top, so my screen, I'm using Tmax. So on top is the actual Docker Compose for Amundsen. This is my Docker Compose. I'm just spinning up a local Postgres instance that I added to the network. And then I wrote, again, I really took vanilla stuff. So they actually provide a lot of scripts that you can plug in.
By the way, Marilo approves.
Okay, good. I'm also gonna, can I actually zoom in here? I don't know how to zoom. So anyway, so this script, it's part, like if you go in their data builder, like they have a lot of scripts that you can use to easily plug and play some data sources. So here I really took their Postgres example. I'm gonna run this as is. The only thing I changed here is actually my Postgres connection string. That's the only thing that happened. So if I run this, right? So we see on top, there was a few things. So two things actually happened when we did this. So there are two jobs. One job is to get the data from Postgres, and the second one is basically to index that data inside Elasticsearch. So if you do one and not the other, you can basically, you have your data inside Neo4j, but you won't be able to search for it, which happened to me yesterday while testing the small demo. So be careful about that. Something very nice, which I did not mention, is like they basically have this, and you can really easily plug this inside Airflow DAGs. So they have a lot of Airflow built-in mechanisms that you can reuse. Okay, changing the camera. So I ran this, and then if I go back in my Amundsen, so I'm expected to see to be able at least to search the shark attacks, right? So here, I actually ran this yesterday already. This is why like the owner I already put myself, but you can add tags. So here I could say shark. And the moment I do this, it should be available. Like here, I added myself a small description. Something I did extra compared to our previous run is I added a few, actually only one column description. So if I add it inside Postgres, so this was done inside Postgres. So if you actually look at the script, here I added a comment on shark attack to age. I said age of the victim. And this is actually pulled in directly by Amundsen. So something we could try as well is okay, there's some lag on the.
So and how is it pulled in by Amundsen?
How is it pulled in? It's using their they have their own ETL tool to take data from sources, put it on the local file system, and then push it to.
So it monitors the Postgres.
No, it does not. So you need to run the script.
Okay, but it's not that you that Amundsen works as a proxy.
No.
Okay.
No, you really need. So as far as I can see, if we talk integrations, like you would probably put this inside your Airflow DAGs. Like you publish your data, and then you also publish it to your Amundsen instance.
Okay. Maybe just a small interruption. Nick wants your PyCharm text to be bigger.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a lot of complaints about your text size, Gauthier.
Well, where
isn't it just Command plus?
It's not on IntelliJ and JetBrains.
It would look more professional if you just look like a few shortcuts. I'm messing with you.
So what is this? It does not zoom. Great. I don't know, guys. It's not even in the action design. What's the PyCharm comment? Go on, tell me. Command key plus mouse, right?
That's that.
Does not work either. Actually,
there
we go.
Wow.
It was actually simpler than expected.
Wow. So Pablo asks how this compares to other tools. Like there are a lot of different tools out there. If I understand correctly, Gauthier, like this forces you to say, okay, I'm creating this data, and please Amundsen also look at this, right?
So you actually, you publish it to Amundsen, and then it is made available for everybody to query and see what's up.
Okay, so and how do you but what can you query in Amundsen? Only the metadata.
Only the metadata.
Okay.
So, but you can add a bit of your own. You can also actually, so they have a full Neo4j connection, so you can actually connect to the server and see.
So what I kind of like, but I'm definitely not an expert in this, is Satori, which is I think a competitor to this, and they work by basically positioning themselves as a proxy to your databases. So all your connections to query or to do whatever in your data storage goes via Satori as a proxy, and that basically means that you get this automatic discovery of data. So just by using it, just by setting it up as a proxy, and by using your data day to day, it basically learns what data there is, and you get a lot of basic information directly in Satori without doing a lot of work.
So this is more of a pull-based system, because this one is you really need to push data.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna. Right, we're connected. So here you can actually see the data that's in Amundsen. So this is the test data that they provide. This is my shark attack. You can expand on it, but this is just regular Neo4j stuff. I'm not going to demo Neo4j. It's not the point of the demo, but all of that to say that this is really the data that is stored. But yeah, it does require you basically to set up those ETLs towards Amundsen.
Yeah. So if you would, let's say, if an ETL job, I don't know, Spark Python, you pull data from a source, you push it to, I don't know, let's say Postgres. At the end of your Spark job, you need to have something like, please update Amundsen.
I would add it to your scheduler. I would put it as a separate job and add it to your you do your normal ETL and then you publish that.
But it has to be part of your ETL pipeline to say, okay, please update Amundsen.
Yeah, so it needs you need to put this somewhere. I would put this explicitly inside the job so that you can also see why is this data not there?
Okay.
When was it updated? But they don't have any pull system. And yeah, I find, to be completely honest, UI is it's very basic. You only have a search bar. You can click on tags because there is a few of them. But that's
it's easy, I assume, to add custom tags. So that, for example, that you can say this data set, public shark attack
here
contains, for example, let's say GDPR sensitive data, PII data.
There we go. That's it. Just added the tag GDPR there. And then normally.
And then this it allows users to also search for tags.
So if you go on the main UI, so you have this, so you have popular tags, but you also have the advanced search.
Okay.
So here, if I would say, give me the stuff that is shark, okay, it was not indexed. I think I also have Kaggle on there.
Yeah. And how, querying this data set cannot, it doesn't go via Amundsen. Let's say if I'm a user, I'm using Amundsen to see what data is there in my organization. I find this public.shark_tags. How do I know? So I know how the data looks like, know the tags, maybe some other information. But how can I go from here to actually accessing this data?
So here, normally, so you see it's a Postgres database. There must be somewhere. Actually, that's a good point. No, it's not I don't think they give you any way to actually connect to it. It's a bit missing.
So from here, I need to see I need to give enough information in my name here, the name of the database being Postgres,
you can actually change
or there, to say, okay, this is the system that it's in, and here you can find that access.
So except for this metadata on the columns, is there anything else you can add?
Well, metadata on the data set, but that's basically it.
But there's no built-in structures to make that easy, I don't know, a wiki for specific things or documentation on.
No. But the link that you have here, this, you can actually share, right?
Yeah,
and
I see.
And what is also interesting is the owners, huh? Because typically, especially in a large organization, that's always difficult to who is then responsible for this data.
Something I could not get to work as a frequent user. So I've been using this yesterday and today, and I'm still not a frequent user. Also, my name says a T here, but if I click on it, it doesn't work. So
the T from Gauthier.
Exactly. No, but so there are a few things there that I feel were missing. Also, this part that if you put the data in but you don't index it using Elasticsearch, then you can't really search for it. It's the same for the tags that I've set. So the Amundsen, for example, this shark attack dataset. So you have to be pretty precise. The shark attack dataset, we just added the tag GDPR, but if I actually search for that tag, I somehow need to reindex this. So tags. If I do this, I can't find my dataset. Although it is there and it has that tag, so you need to reindex it in between. And to me, that experience is a bit difficult because you edit stuff and you expect it to be reflected in the UI. But that part is quite hard.
And tech stack wise, if I understand correctly, you need an Elasticsearch instance to be able to actually do search, plus Neo4j.
Yeah. So what happens is they they only index things in Elasticsearch to be able to do, I guess, fuzzy matching and all these things that are built in. And you get really fast response. Also, it scales really well, which is one of the main features of Amundsen, is that you can find data very quickly. And once you found the data, querying it using Neo4j, like, it's very nice because like you're just going to target one specific part, and then if all the things that are connected are going to be nearby. So the search, I think, it's like a lens that you can target something, and then Neo4j acts as the actual data holder.
That's cool.
And I think what we can try is if I actually rerun my small script to reindex it. Normally the GDPR should be there. There you go. So here I reindexed, like my script actually launches a reindex on Elasticsearch. So now if I use the GDPR tag, I can actually find my shark tags, which was not the case if I would just edit it here, which I think is a bit of a missing feature, to be honest. But all the technologies mentioned are there to scale. And it comes from, Lyft, right? I think.
Can you add, like, where would you store information on? So, like, we're doing a lot on data quality recently, like some descriptives about data quality. Could we add this to a data set in some way? Would you in this case use a tag for it or something like?
Well, I mean, if you do this, like so if you do data quality, you're probably gonna create somewhere data quality things, and I would put it there, right?
As a tag.
Well, I mean, yeah, as a tag, but what I mean is like you're gonna probably store that data quality information in some database or some medium.
Yeah,
and
of
then,
course.
And then that you can index inside.
But you could on the data set that you're actually monitoring, you could say, for example, you could create a tag like this is data set is actively being monitored for data quality.
Of course, so exactly the tags. That's I mean, you can put anything you want there.
Or something that shows a bit. What do we think the quality is? High quality, iffy, shitty, right?
But probably like what I would see is that because you set up those scripts, right, those push scripts, like the nice thing with that is that you can probably build a bit your own, and then you can say like every time a data set is taken from this source, add this extra information, put this in the description, or you can actually force people to provide that information. Which is something I would see happening, to have basically standards inside your company that you can force kind of into code.
It's fully open source, right?
Fully open source.
It's cool.
I also joined their community, because I was looking a bit like, can you add just user profiles and interaction with AD and OICD providers. So some people are working on it, but it's not part of the stack yet. But if you actually go in their Slack, there is a few people working on this, but it's not, as far as I've seen, also the most active community. Just a few things here and there, but there is no. Yeah.
But it's. I was looking at the GitHub page. Is it actively being developed? There are a lot of people. Like there's on the README, there's like companies that are officially using it. Like there are big companies there. Asana, Bang & Olufsen, Databricks, ING, Lyft themselves, of course.
Right. Something else is they expose their data, and you can easily build analytics on top of it with Tableau or something else, which I think you have to do basically.
Nice, yeah.
This is just like, it's going to provide you that data. You can search for stuff, but then if you want to show something nicer than the Amundsen UI, probably use one of those.
That's cool. And they provide an API or something, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's really mainly it. And they really have done a lot of work around Apache Airflow. Like every time you want to use one of those sources, you can quite easily plug it into Airflow, which is really nice.
And if Airflow to trigger these, in what context would you use Airflow here?
Well, so part of your ETL is creating the data, and then you just add an extra step.
Okay. And there are Airflow plugins readily available for it. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Anything else to add?
No, not really. I was expecting a bit more fancy stuff, to be honest.
And what were you expecting? What was missing for you to have a wow experience?
the-
Why
I
didn't
don't-
you have a wow experience?
Yeah, the UI is far from great. The fact that you add stuff, but sometimes you can't search it, and you have to figure out, okay, like this is because it was not properly indexed. These kind of small quirks are not easy, and also like this, just saying this, it's not extremely clear. But I'm not a UI person, but I'm just not super fan of this.
So for something that's supposed to be sort of a search engine, it's not really giving a great search engine experience.
Well, I don't think so, because, for example, like here, I would have expected, for example, if I put char, that I find my shark dataset. It's not the case.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe,
I see.
I don't know. I really don't know what I have to do to make this work. No, but like,
And if you just type shark, but there's shark in the this in the description. There's the word shark. And if you do char, you don't get it. Wow.
so
That
this is
weird.
the part exactly. Like I would expect, like if you use
need like a full
Elasticsearch.
Elasticsearch instance running in the background. But probably this has something to do with RTFM, right?
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's more
If we're
of
being
a
honest.
it's more of a me problem than the tool problem.
This is, I think, the challenge with demoing this.
But
and
even
just checking it out.
but again, like if that's the case and they have a specific syntax, then like a small icon saying, "Hey, by the way, you can click on this link to get the syntax," would be a nice addition.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, Gauthier, for the demo.
Yeah, that's it. What I will do, same for the metadata, I will upload the small scripts and everything that I've had here if you want to reproduce this and play with it, basically.
Nice.
On our GitHub.
Cool. Gauthier surprised me with a drawing today. He drew. Who is it? Snuffles, right?
It's Snuffles. Yes.
So if it hasn't been clear by now, Gauthier is a big fan of Rick and Morty.
It's random drawing.
So there is definitely some artistic talent. Is it?
It took me time. Snuffles took me more time than Picker Rick.
But it's super impressive, though.
That's impressive, huh?
Yeah.
It's good to know that you have the skill, Gauthier. So this opens up opportunities.
Sure.
I'll let Tim will give you the word.
Thank you. I actually still wanted to ask Gauthier something about.
Go ahead.
Amundsen. Is it something that you see yourself using in the future?
Like this is what I said, like the whole experience, and I imagine, like, because I only spin this up locally, but if you spin this up at scale, you do need Neo4j, you do need an Elasticsearch instance, and yet another service on top of it.
I see.
It's a lot of work. It's really a lot of
I
work.
see.
But I see a lot of value. Like if you're a big company that data is scattered around, I think there is a lot of value there. For you to see if investing the time in all these technologies is also worth. Like sometimes they're already part of your stack, and I think that makes a lot of sense then to use them. But introduce all of these technologies just for that is a big step.
It's a lot of maintenance, especially like this tech stack, right? And if you're cloud-based today, I think all the 3 cloud providers have their own offering in this. So it becomes like, okay, well, what are the features that we get with Amundsen versus what we have in our own cloud, or maybe a pricing estimate, price consideration. I mean,
customizability, I think is something you can really have there, like because you can really set your standards and everything. Like the balance is, you need to strike balance in ops.
yeah. It's always the right tool for the right job, right? Well, Tim, if you
yeah, I'll happily take over.
If you want to show your screen, you need to, I think, still share it.
Yeah.
So Tim will
should be
demo guild.ai. Voila, and there we are. Also with a very fancy terminal,
wonderful,
black with green letters.
Sure,
I don't know.
Very fancy.
Green cursor.
And it is big enough.
Yeah. So guild.ai, in a nutshell, it's a lightweight experiment management tool it's much more than that as well. I think it's really important. It's really easy to start using as well. It has a very low barrier of entry, which I'll show you in a bit. And I think it's incredibly important to use an experiment management system because, you know, no matter how great your intuition is, it's experimental data science or machine learning. So I'm just going to show you how to quickly start using guild.ai. It should take about 5 minutes and require very little change in whatever code you already have. So let's make a little training script. I'm just going to copy something in. So here I have some hyperparameters and I simulate a training loss. So I'm not actually going to train a model. For the sake of this demo, it's sufficient to have some hyperparameters that we can tune and a training loss. But it should work with any other model as well. Okay, nice. So I already have guild installed. It's a simple question of doing pip install. So pretty easy compared to the previous tool, I would say. So as soon as you have it installed, you can already run your script. So there you go. Guild automatically detects whatever hyperparameter you have in the script. And as soon as you run it, Guild also tracks the run. Okay, this is great. But yeah, so how can you see what the outcomes are? In the terminal, you can use guild compare. So where you can see some basic parameters. Of course, this is pretty, I mean, you can't do a lot of advanced visualizations with this or compare how the hyperparameters influence the final loss. So for that, there are some more complex methods of visualization that are built into guild.ai. But before I do that, I'm going to show you a bit how easy it also is to take your existing training script and start optimizing your model. So let's say,
Tim,
yeah?
I'm maybe gonna ask the same question here. Like, what is the,
Yeah.
like, why is this a problem that needs to be tackled?
Okay, so when you're working with other machine learning engineers or by yourself even, you're often going to find an abstract problem where you don't necessarily know the solution. So part of that is training the model. So which parameters should you choose? Which type of model should you choose? But it could also be how do you pre-process your data? So these are all paths there are lots of paths you can take. And often you will explore many of these paths. And often those explorations are not documented, at least not in detail. Okay. And so afterwards, when you find an error or you find some kind of magical model, you may want to go back and see, okay, what did I do previously, or why does this work? Why does this not work compared to the current model or with this new data set, and so forth. And Guild makes it easy to do experiments very quickly. Okay. And because of that, you have this really nice log of your history. And the best part is that you can do it in a few minutes. You can set it up with whatever system you already have in place. So that's really the use case, I think.
Quick question there. Like, because you mentioned, okay, like it's nice if you work with a team. Like, because for the moment you're doing this locally, do they have, or maybe you're going to demo this afterwards, but do they have something to really share experiments? So let's say you do something and I do something. Like, can we share that data? Does it get, like, do you put it on Git? Do you, I just wonder.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the creator of this package chose, I think, purposefully to keep the question of sharing data separate from the idea of doing experiments really quickly. So the package is really just focused on being able to track your experiments, but there are already methods to share your experiments. So you could use a GIST. So you could create a GIST really quickly, or the easiest way is to maybe save your experiment runs. So the metadata, for example, on an S3 bucket.
Okay.
And then push that S3 data to a repository. So it's I mean, the solution is not built into guild.ai, which is actually good because it allows you a lot of flexibility. Yeah. So it basically fits with whatever system you have, and you can share that metadata if you want to.
And these results that you were just looking at, they get stored in a local file, in your local file system at the moment.
So right now, at the moment, indeed, it's saved in the guild home directory, which at the moment is just my virtual environment, I think. So, but it's easy to set it up so you can save it on S3. I've already done this for a previous project.
Okay, they've built in integration for this to save it on S3 or similar.
I think so. Yes, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they have. I mean, you can see it here actually. So it says here, copy one or more runs to a remote location. So they have support for S3. I think also for Azure Blob. I'm not sure about Google Cloud. I don't know how that works.
Clear. Thanks.
So the main use case, if I understand you correctly, Tim, is really like I'm building this model, I'm using these parameters, and with these parameters, hyperparameters, I'm getting this result. And this combination of model parameters and result is something that you want to track. This is what you define as the experiment.
Yes, it's about being able to track why things work or why things don't work. It's kind of the way that we try to do science, making sure that things are reproducible, making sure that we understand why we came to the current results. But you can also do some kind of meta learning because you save all of these metrics, so you can start to make more intelligent decisions on why you choose a particular set of parameters for the data processing or for the model itself.
Right. Okay.
Cool.
In addition to that, but that's something I'll get to later, is that guild.ai also gives you a bit of a common language between machine learning engineers and data scientists and data engineers. Because you can, well, I'll get to it later, but you can define operations that that split these problems into separate steps. So let's say if you're working on a project where you want to load some data in, pre-process it, but there's different ways to pre-process the data. So you can include this feature or augment the data in a way. You want to see what the impact of augmenting the data in a certain way is on your final model performance, but you want to do that separately from the model training. So guild.ai allows you to do that. So split up all of these steps quite efficiently.
Sorry.
What's going on there?
Yeah, just a second. I think we're getting a package.
Aha, I see.
Yeah, but keep going, Tim. If the noise is not too loud, keep going.
No. I don't think it's too disturbing. But so we've done now one experiment, but let's say that we have some idea of which model parameters are going to be promising. So I'm going to pass a set of parameters to the model.
Quick question on this, because you said, okay, like it can actually look into the train.py and see that we're using those parameters. How did it infer this? Did you have to have any syntax in there that
So I'm not sure exactly what the method is behind the scenes, let's say, but it works fairly consistently just by specifying the variables in the beginning of your script. And
Okay,
so
so
as
if you
long
have-
as you specify variable in advance and it gets used at some point in the script in a function, it will track it. That's the general idea. But ideally, when you're doing a mature project, you'll have a lot of parameters and you'll want to predefine them, of course, and give them descriptions.
Okay. If I'm getting this right, you define a big dictionary at the beginning, and that it's gonna basically fetch that information for you.
Wait, I'll show you actually. So I'm going to skip ahead then a bit.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. No, it's okay. So typically what you want to do when you do a more mature project approach, rather than just, post hoc apply this experiment management system to whatever you already in place, you're going to define a guild YAML file. So I'm just going to copy in an example now. So the way that guild works is you have different types of objects that you define in the YAML file. One of them is the model. So a model is typically something you'll train or feed some data to. And then you define operations inside an object. In this case, the only operation is to train it. You then specify main, which is just the function that does the actual training. And then you specify flags. So flags are all the possible parameters that you might want to keep or manipulate or do all sorts of things with. The output scalars are then, the methods by which you evaluate the model.
Mm-hmm.
But so this is still a rather simplistic approach because here you're still not splitting up the steps of preparing data and training it. So it's actually better um, to split these steps up. So I'll give you another example.
And quickly on this, because you just
Yeah.
showed, so you define one model, but
Mhm.
when you introduce the tool, you said, okay, like we try to solve a problem, and
Mhm.
sometimes like, or maybe I'm wrong, but like you want to apply different models to a given problem because just one might
Yeah.
just work better than another. Like, is this supported by guild.ai, or is this going to be a complete
Yes.
different model?
Yes. So if you have an experiment related to some specific shared goal, you can do that
Mm-hmm.
all from one YAML file. So you would probably create multiple of these model objects. So
Mm-hmm.
you could create another one, let's say iris random forests, and
Right.
create the same flags and so forth. And then if you want to see, okay, which model is best, you can start to build a pipeline. So that's another type of object where you can be like, okay, I want to have the same steps in the beginning. So load the data, pre-process it, but then I want to choose between these models. So then you can just run the pipeline
Okay.
and let Guild do the optimization. So that's all
Okay, that's very cool.
supported.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, you don't need to do all of this. You can just start using the experiment management system from the get-go without any setup. You just install guild.ai and everything is working. I didn't show you yet the nice visualizations which are out of the box also supported. But once you go to more mature projects, you indeed want to, define your operations, define your dependencies, which are also all part of this guild YAML file. So for example, for the iris model that I defined here, it says that it requires the data to be prepared. So it just won't run, or it won't run successfully if it sees that the data preparation hasn't happened.
Right.
Uh, yeah, I don't know if you have any specific questions, or otherwise I'll just show you how it actually looks like assessing the experiments that you ran. If that's okay with you.
Let's have a look.
Okay. Okay. So let's hope that works. Yeah. So I only ran a few runs here, and this UI is also pretty basic. So you can see on the left side the experiments that I ran previously with the label that I gave. You can start comparing them with, I mean, it's a pretty simple UI. There's nothing too great about this, as in like you can do a lot of advanced stuff here, but it's a nice view to start off with. The nice thing is also that you track all of the dependencies. In this case, there are no dependencies, but let's say that you want to save the data as an artifact related to this run, then you can access it here. Or you want to output some example file or images, then it's also here.
And you can also link the
When you're
model
running a
itself.
notebook, yeah. So you can also save that as a model artifact indeed and save it here. You can also choose which ones get stored on S3 or not, and so forth. So there's quite a bit of customizability. And if you would run instead of a Python script, a Jupyter notebook, it would also save the output of the Jupyter notebook as an HTML file and extract all the images and so forth. So that's also quite nice. But this is when you look at the answer boards.
Just while this is starting,
Would
like
you
how
like
did you
support?
start that UI? How did you access that UI?
So what I did is I ran this command here. So build view, so out of the box that works as well. I'm right now running it remotely, so that's why I need to do the port.
Yeah. Okay, but that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah. So out of the box, you have these really nice visuals that you can look at. So for example, if you want to see where is my loss the lowest, what kind of parameters are related to that, even which source code is related to that. So all this is traceable by just doing pip install guild.ai.
Okay. But this is TensorBoard, right? This is something
Yeah.
that is provided for you by Guild.
Yep, indeed. So I think they don't really try to replace your tools. Literally, they just focus on one thing and help you with integrating guild.ai in whatever other tools. So, for example, when it comes to data versioning, there's no real good solution right now for guild.ai, but the creator is working on integrating DVC as well. So allowing you to do data versioning as part of the guild.ai pipeline.
Right.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any idea on how you would integrate it in more, let's say, an MLOps, like a hit-based MLOps flow? Like, would you, let's say, you have a model, you have a main branch, you have created a PR where you're trying a new experiment. How would this integrate there? Or would it be like at the end of this training job, you push these results to the PR as a comment, or if you thought about this, or?
So I think there is a conscious decision to not make it based on a Git flow. DVC does that actually. It makes it like really dependent on the Git flow, but that also makes it somewhat more arduous and difficult sometimes because the experimenting is slower and you don't necessarily want to commit all experiments or at least not all artifacts. And so again, here, yes, you could do that. You could, at the end of a training job, automatically push it to your S3 or whatever, and then set up a trigger there to push it to your PR or whatever. So it's all possible, but it's not out of the box immediately.
Because it is a CLI, you can basically do
exactly
whatever you want with it.
Okay.
Indeed.
And this visual UI that you have here, the main one, not that that's word, but is it meant to be used locally, or let's say when you're in a team setting, you host it somewhere?
Exactly.
I think you could just host it somewhere, yeah. I mean, I haven't looked into this to be honest, but I don't think it would be too hard, no. Yeah.
And is it then also possible to, in the UI, to go over the different models and the different experiments under those models, or is the scope really a model?
So you can just write a regex to filter whichever model you want. So if you just add a label based on your model name, you can do it that way, or you can base it on the specific dependency for this run. There's many ways to filter. So in principle, you could do it, but it's not necessarily an immediate button that you can just click. What I can do, for example, is here instead of saying guild view port whatever, I can instead just focus on the ones that I'm interested in. So that would be, let's say, the manual search. And that way I only get those ones I'm interested in. So that's also a way to do it.
Okay.
That's cool. And what is your idea now after using it, testing it out? Like, are you excited about it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a really nice tool. And using the guild YAML file also makes it so that you can, it forces you to make better decisions in terms of modularizing parts of the project. So you can really track which part of the project is causing issues or which part is performing well. For example, in a previous project, we also added great expectations to this workflow so that we could also see, you know, the metrics of the data set, so that you could see, is it following a certain distribution, or is it not following our expectations of the data set, and so forth. And so, yeah, I think it's a very promising tool. If you're not using any experiment management, I would argue that it's effortless to set up. So why not? If you want to use it in a more complex project, it requires a bit more setup. But in my eyes, it should be. It's definitely possible to use it with almost any configuration you have in place. So I like that.
And how would you compare to alternatives? Because I have the feeling that
There is a lot of them.
yeah, it's a very hyped domain at the moment. I have the feeling.
I agree. Yeah. So actually, we're still going to be looking at that together at the data roots. There's an initiative for that going on. So we're also figuring it out at this point. But I've done some comparisons, and from what I can tell, guild.ai seems to be harder to integrate out of the box for complex projects, but it's also less opinionated. So that's part of the reason. You don't have to set up all of these dependencies, these requirements.
Mm-hmm.
You have to set them up yourself. And so that's where something like maybe MLflow is stronger. MLflow might also have better visualizations out of the box. And so that's a definite. Did I disconnect there for a moment? Or
Yeah, but we kept hearing you.
That's fine. That's fine.
The connection sometimes breaks up, but
Okay.
I think it's fine. But indeed, like you mentioned MLflow, this gives me very much MLflow vibes, I think. But the thing with MLflow is that it tries to do, at least over time, is trying to solve a lot of things. Well, here it's much more like it is purely tracking the experiment, which is to me like valuable because like this whole machine learning lifecycle chain is so big, it's so custom to the context that you're in, the tool stack that you're using, the team context that you organize around, that it makes sense in some context at least to make this very modular. And this solves only one part of the challenge, and that allows you to be opinionated about the rest of the chain. Doesn't force you to organize yourself around the tool. You can organize your process yourself, and this becomes a component in it.
No, another quick question, because we discussed open source, so MLflow is also open source, but like cloud providers now are also tending to provide the same services. Did you use this? Like, first of all, is this the first time that you kind of are using guild.ai, or did you use it on a project? And was it on a cloud provider? And did you a bit look up what they were proposing there as well?
Okay, so we used it in a project with AWS. So at some point during the project, we were using SageMaker, and I know that SageMaker also recently are using their own tools for this specific part, experiment management.
Exactly, right.
But I wasn't a huge fan of the SageMaker experimentation. I thought this was a lot more. It had a lower barrier of entry. First of all, you don't have to change your code. And it also has a lot more customizability. So especially the guild YAML file is very attractive to me because I can really, assess every part of the flow and do whatever I want in a way. Whereas in SageMaker, I'm still kind of locked in with the limitations of that specific project.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it works in a project. It works on the cloud. They also have support for working remotely. It's not completely feature complete for all the things you might worry about when you're trying to industrialize something, but it's close and it's getting there, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think like it's a very valid point. I think all like the three major cloud providers, they're all trying to have a clear offering here, right?
They're trying to fill the gap.
Yeah.
They're trying to fill the gap as well.
And I think a lot changed there in the last year. But it's a difficult domain, and like I have the feeling that there are some best practices in terms of how should high level lifecycle management of machine learning projects look like, but on a lower level, how do you actually implement it? I have the feeling that there are still very little best practices. Like it depends a lot on the different tooling, like
tooling projects.
Exactly, yeah. And I think like because we take the example of AWS SageMaker there, like it's a good approach, but then you have to go fully dedicated to that because it's very opinionated, and like you very much change your code base based on how you should work with experiment tracking, things like this.
But on the other, like anyway, it's like everything. It's opinionated, but I think it's there. Like
exactly.
It's there for the taking. You don't need to do anything else.
Exactly.
Right?
If you are on AWS, it makes a lot of sense. Right?
And if you start a new project.
Indeed.
Okay.
Cool, Tim.
But yeah, I think also part of the appeal is just it's so easy. If you don't have anything in place, it takes 5 minutes to set up. So yeah, I'd say use it.
No reason not to do any experiment tracking anymore. Is that the conclusion of this?
I think you should always measure your model, and it's really easy, so you don't have an excuse. Use it.
It's good to know.
On that note of advice, let's end this session. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Thank you for having me.
Next time, let me just quickly pick the agenda. So the next one is, I think,
On the
on the
8th.
8th of April,
Yep.
where we have a guest speaker, Stéphane Jourdan, who is the CTO of Drift CTL. Gauthier, in a nutshell, what is Drift CTL?
Drift CTL addresses a problem where, so if you do infrastructure as code, you've seen this already, like people still go in the UI and still change stuff by hand, and that is called drifting. So your code does not reflect reality anymore. I don't know much more than that. I think Stefan has a lot more to say than I do.
Voilà. So we're excited for that. The April 8th at 11 o'clock,
Yep.
Belgian time. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you next time.
See you.